Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode. Hey, Slick Talkers, welcome back to another episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and this episode is a special broadcast for any of you who may or may not have been able to attend our discussion at VRMA. I was able to moderate a panel discussion with Brandy Canali, Andrew Kitchell, Luca Zambello, and Ella Metaborsky. If you don't know those names, Andrew is with Wheelhouse, Brandy is with Sextant Stays, Luca is with Journey, and of course Ella is with AutoHost, and they have all been guests on this podcast at least once. So in this panel, we were discussing the conversation and topic of all-in-one tech solutions or specialized tech stacks for vacation rental managers. Now, this was a fun conversation, and it definitely gets your wheels turning on your own tech stack. And to be honest, we had no real answer for any of the audience or even you as the listeners, because guess what? The answer really comes down to it depends on your business and what you want to achieve with your vacation rental management company. Whether you want 10 properties, 100 properties, or 1,000 properties, an all-in-one solution or a specialized tech stack may or may not be the route to go. So in this episode, we cover that and why there are certain factors you need to keep in account as you discover more and more about what you want your business to be. For any of you professional managers out there already operating and growing at great scale, this might be an interesting conversation for you. So I hope you enjoy this conversation and it brings some sort of insight in any shape or form. And I just got to say thank you so much to Andrew, Brandy, Luca, and Ella for taking the time to not only to do this once at Vegas for VRMA, but also to re-record and rehash the whole conversation over again on a recording. You guys are amazing. And now back to the episode. You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin. Okay, I know I said we'd get right back to the episode, but I have to say a special thank you to all of our sponsors. In this episode, we're going to discuss specialized solutions or all-in-one technology for your vacation rental business. And I'm a big believer in the big five. And right now, I'm about to list three of them, and they're all sponsors of this show. Hostfully, Minute, and Safely. I personally believe having a strong property management software like Hostfully that connects with all the right other technologies that you need is key. And you're going to hear about this when we talk about the annual hospitality report that Hostfully does every year, where I actually just had David Jacoby and Fred Basili on the show for the third time to discuss their findings from their survey and their report. So this Friday coming out, you'll hear it, a bonus episode just for you. Now, Minute, let's discuss noise and occupancy monitoring. Minute is the solution. Not only do they detect noise, but they can tell when there is movement in the property when there really shouldn't be. Your property is vacant and all of a sudden the motion detector goes off. That's a big sign that something could be wrong or happening in your property that shouldn't. And guess what? In order to protect your property, for every reservation that comes through to your properties, Safely is the only insurance product and technology that you need in order to protect yourself, your guests, and of course your owners. Again, I'm a big believer in these solutions. So if you don't believe me, check out the show notes for your special offers and discounts just for you Slick Talk listeners. All right, as promised, back to the episode in 3, 2, 1. All right, we are back. on a very special episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. If you're watching the live version, you're going to see four other faces on camera with me. And this is very rare for me to do. But we had such a great time hanging out together at the VRMA conference, talking about the discussion that we're about to have today. We're going to give you some highlights. So I'm going to let my amazing friends and guests introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with Brandy Canale, who should be no stranger to the show. But if you haven't heard her name or Sex and Stays, I'm gonna let Brandy kick it off from here.
Well, that was a great intro. I'm Brandy. I'm the COO of Sex and Stays. We're an operator headquartered in Miami. And yeah, I've been on here a couple of times, so excited to talk with everybody again.
Definitely not a stranger. Ella, how are we doing today? I'll let you introduce yourself.
We're good. It started snowing. So my name is Ellen Jaworski. I'm the co-founder and president here at AutoHost. And what we do at AutoHost is a guest screening and automation platform. So we work with hospitality providers and operators from short-term rentals, hotels, and so on to really automate the risk analysis and the guest screening process, ID verification, security deposits, background checks when needed. We have a whole fraud part of the platform, fighting chargebacks, so kind of that fun stuff part of things.
All the stuff that no one likes to deal with as a property manager or very much. Awesome. Well, Andrew Kitchell, how are we doing?
Doing great. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew from Wheelhouse. Wheelhouse is a revenue management software. We work with hosts and owners and large portfolios and folks like Journey and Lucas team.
Awesome.
So I'll hand it right over to you, Luca.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm Luca, the CEO of Journey. Journey is an interconnectivity platform. We work on building a pre-built tech stack, putting together best-in-class service providers in the industry and making it work as a single system.
I love it. And the fun way that we kicked this panel off at VRMA, which was, I think, a great way to start off this episode as well, where we're not just a bunch of tech people and a podcaster. We're actually all have been operators in some shape or form, whether Brandy, currently an operator now, but then Ella, Andrew, and both Luca, and even myself have been or are operators through vacation rentals and hotels. So it's not just a bunch of tech people telling operators what to do, and then Brandy being like, "Well, actually, you're all wrong." It's actually a bunch of us who have had actual hands and boots on the ground experience. So I think that was a great tone to set off everything. So going back into the panel, we had a discussion around specialized technology versus all-in-one solutions, and there is a unique way to understand all-in-one solutions. They could have built everything they wanted from revenue management to an auto host to a lock solution to this to that, or they could be like a journey, which we'll love to let Luca maybe key this off, where it's understanding connecting the specialized solutions to one platform for the user rather than building everything yourself. So actually, Luca, I'll let you kick off on that note because I think for anyone who maybe attended VRMA, did see our session, may not have understood that. So kind of explain to us what you guys do and why you're going the route that you guys are going, because Journey is the first time or the first enter player for this type of solution.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it helps the fact that I've been basically in the property management for almost 10 years. And one of the things that I've noticed is that um, really there's nothing that glues different tech stacks together. I mean, you have, like you said, the all-in-one solutions, or you have PMS solutions where they have kind of like a marketplace. You have to choose you have to choose your own tech stack and try to make it work together. But really, what's missing out of this is the interconnectivity of these tools. So one tool doesn't work with one another, and it doesn't work as a single system. And so really what we realized that all the major big management companies, they were trying to compensate that by investing money and trying to create automations and interconnectivity on their own and investing a lot of money on top of existing PMSs. And so because of that, we realized there was actually a massive gap in the industry. And so we decided to invest a lot of resources on building a platform that just does that, right? And so Journey's job is to be on top of it, on top of who are the best in class for each service. Like for pricing, who's the best in class, for guest verifications, who's the best in class. But so same for access control system, hardware. And so choose really what are channel management. Choose all these different solutions and choose one per category aside from the hardware side that we integrate with multiple different hardware and really glue it together and make it look like it's a single dashboard and it's a single platform and one single membership that you need. And make it work like like a like a single system, right? Versus like multiple different systems that don't talk with one another.
And I love that because I think as all of us have been operators, there's so many logins, there's so many dashboards, there's so many, I guess, like finger pointing that happens when solutions don't connect or don't work. So, the main question that we posed for everyone in the audience was, how do you decide what to how do you decide what tech stack to build or what all-in-one solution to start with that connects to the best of the best? And so I think our answer to that question was it depends. Like it's not like there is no right answer. It really depends on your market, on your operation, your business model. So I'm gonna actually send it off to now Brandy to kind of dive into, you know, I guess maybe some highlights that you took away from the panel. Maybe that was discussed through us, or maybe after the Q&A with the people in the audience, because I think we found out very quickly that the answer was very much so. It depends.
Yeah, so I think one of the big determining factors is how big you are right now and kind of what your projected growth over the next, like, say, 2 years is. Because if you're small and you have 5 to maybe 20 properties or units, that's a very different need, like, and set of needs that and financial ability that you have to kind of compile this tech stack. So, I think it's being honest about what your growth targets are and then looking forward. So when you're interviewing, which you definitely should be doing when you're choosing, if you're choosing a revenue management software, you should be interviewing everyone, asking a lot of questions. Same thing with your PMS or guest screening or whatever it is. So really making sure that you have, kind of all of your interview questions set up ahead of time, knowing what your growth targets are and what maybe some of the pain points that you're experiencing now and how those can evolve. And then I also think one of the things that people have to be comfortable with is change. So you might think, okay, I'm going to go from 20 units to 60, and then you get bigger, or maybe you don't grow as much, and you have to adapt with the needs of your business. So you might pick one platform or one software, whatever it is right now, and then in a couple of years, you might have to change that. So I think in our industry, especially for people who have been in the industry for a long time, they pick a PMS, for example, and then just like that's it for you know, in perpetuity. And I think people have to be a little bit more comfortable with change. And it's a painful process. As I mentioned in the panel, I've migrated our PMS 4 times. I just finished our fourth migration. I hope that's it for a while. But it's because our business has changed so drastically over the last 4 years. So we've had to say, okay, this is no longer serving us. And if we don't make this change now, it's going to be even more painful in a year or 2 years.
100%. And I guess a question to pose to Ella and Andrew, since that you guys are specialized in one category of the industry, what makes it super hard for operators to implement their technology or even to decide on what to add into their business or to take away? From your experience, either as an operator or as you are hearing from your current customers or potential customers that are joining your platforms. And I think we'll kick off with Ella first.
Yeah, so I think when we pose the question of kind of how many tech tools do you need or are you using, the answers varied from a very small handful said kind of one or two, and then it went up to three and four, and I think we reached 10 and above. So the point that where the difficulty that we're seeing is really the overwhelm in connecting all of those tech tools. So once you get past kind of Brandy's suggestion of, understanding where are your plans, how are you growing, which tools might you need to be really specialized and deep, and where can you get away with just whatever the PMS offers, your next question to avoid the difficulty of tech is really how do they all connect together? So the interviews that were suggested are a great way to start, and just understanding that even though you don't have to be a tech expert understanding how those tools work together. So I always say that to clients we work with, that whatever tools we're partnered with, be it your access or your lock or your pricing or your nose monitoring, whatever that is, it's on us, and including the PMS, obviously, it's on us, all of our vendors on the back end, to make sure that your experience is seamless. So when you're choosing those types of factors and tools, understanding how they work together and whether you're not going to get ping ponged from one to the other, I would say should be high up on your priority list.
Awesome. And Andrew, how about yourself? Anything to add to that? I think that's all great.
Yeah, I think so the value of Journey and the reason we've kind of tilted into a new technology era in the short-term rental space, like Journey basically is saying interconnectivity matters. And back in the day when property management softwares were kind of evolving, some of the major ones 10 years ago, software was a lot simpler in our category. There wasn't digital access. That wasn't really a question. And there weren't a lot of teams working in multiple markets where maybe you needed data tools or revenue management tools. And, guest verification was probably less of a priority because a lot of the companies who are working in markets were seeing kind of the same families come every single year. Do you really need to verify who's staying with you in that case? Probably not. And now we're in a new world, right? And this actually happened with software companies too. When people started building software as a service companies, SaaS companies, they started to have all these tools, Google Analytics. They might have had a Zendesk for customers. They might have had their team working in Airtable. And a company called Segment came along and said, you know what? There's so many interesting softwares that companies are using now. What the world really needs is a way to just stitch that all together. And our category has crossed the point where I now look at least 13 different categories of software that people in the hospitality space could leverage, at least. And therefore, we've tilted to a time where there's enough great individual softwares that interconnectivity, kind of what Ella was saying with seamless, is really, really important. It's valuable in and of itself. And I think that's really interesting and cool.
100%. So, Luca, being the connectivity partner, being the one that finds these expert specialized solutions, uh, and being like, I don't know, we've had this discussion on multiple podcasts, whether it's this one or others. Building middleware sounds maybe easier than building a specialized solution, but you have way more people now to work with in that connected. So when it comes to Journey, learning from your operations to then building the tech platform now, what is really involved? Because again, the question still comes down to how do you decide? As an operator, how does Brandy decide based off of her interviews with a property management software or a dynamic pricing solution or an access control? How does she decide whether that's a fit, or how does she decide that you guys have connected well enough to bring this experience into one dashboard for an operator like yourself? That's kind of the question still posed.
No, definitely. And I think it's a very interesting topic because, again, I think it's something that we all had to deal with. And really, I tell you how we choose partners for us, because whether you're building whether you're utilizing a pre-built tech stack with Journey or you're building your own, I think this is like Andrew said, is the way you need to start thinking about is these partners, the partners that you're choosing, allowing for interconnectivity? Because when you're missing that, it be it, it's more when you're small in scale, but it becomes massive as you start scaling the business, right? So what happened is when you have a handful of units, you can have people compensating for these issues. But once you start scaling, those small issues become bigger and bigger. And in the same way, it happens if you start scaling your tech stack. You're using a handful of tools, no problem. You start using 12 different tools. If one doesn't talk with one another, it becomes very, very problematic. And as a host, that was my biggest issue. Like I was obsessed about automations, obsessed about creating like processes and really not having people in between processes, because what happened is that people cause mistakes. You need to have people for customer support. You need to have people for the human tax or uh, portion of things in hospitality, but not on making sure that the lock isn't with your guest verification system, for instance, right? Like you don't want to release your checking information to a guest and it's not being verified, for instance, right? That's example interconnectivity. pricing tools can become more efficient if they know what your true costs are. Um, what really is your profit versus you're just like your ref bar, right? So that's really how I think people need to start looking um, into who to partner with. And I think one more very important factor that again I learned on my scheme is I don't choose partners based on what they do today. I mean, that's 60, 70% of my decision, but the other big chunk of it is like what they're going to be tomorrow. And that's more important in my, I flipped the percentage. It's probably 67% of what they're going to be tomorrow. And then 30, 40, what they are today. Because in the end of the day, you invest a lot of money to start working with these partners. You really, in the end of the day, put your whole operation around this operation and these tools, and changing them, it's very expensive. So if you can prevent that because you went with a company that is going to be the future company or the top company in the future, maybe they're not today, maybe they're equal good to other companies, but they're going to be the best company in the future. That's how we choose partners at Journey. And that's how I chose partners before being Journey when I was an operator, and that's the always worked out great for me.
I love that. And it actually brings up something kind of unique. I didn't expect to actually kind of bring this up, but Andrew, you recently during Hurricane Ian, I saw a LinkedIn post where Dennis from Cassiola mentioned, "Hey, we should create this, or we should do this type of I forget what exactly you guys called it, but basically a pricing that adjusts or caps out during an emergency situation like that. So that way,
Yeah.
operators aren't price gouging while there's some severe people in need for legit housing. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Luca, you just mentioned partnerships, and I think a lot of operators look at tech as you work for me, you do what I tell you to do, and if you don't do it, I'm going to leave. Which I've seen that type of attitude very often, and I'm not looking at you, Brandy. I'm looking at somebody else. As no,
Me?
um,
I
no,
was
not you.
waiting with you like points that yeah.
No, 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 no. No, but, like, when I'm, like, talking to specific people, whether they have 10 units or maybe 50 units, that's kind of the attitude I've heard, and I love the word partnership because I think, like Luca, you just said, you're going off of a partner on what they're gonna do in the future, right? Not what exactly they're doing today, so if you can find a really good solution with a really good team and say, "Hey, I'm gonna ride this out with you because I know where you're gonna be," I think a lot of people underestimate that type of value in partnership because it is expensive. As Brandy can attest, it's probably very expensive to switch all these softwares and to implement new stuff. So, Andrew, when you guys are working with people from operations to the team internally, that how does partnership play a role, and does that change the outcome with your customers as they realize it's not, "Hey, do this for me or I'm leaving." It's "Hey, let's work on this together and build a solution that becomes encompassing of what we want the future look like for our operation."
Yeah, I think Wheelhouse got taught a lesson. I always talk about this about 12 months ago. And it was this kind of funny moment where we won an award for making our platform fully transparent and publishing our research. And we had a lot of nice operators walk up to us and say, "We still don't want what you built." And it's like, "Great. Well, why don't we sit down together and talk about what you want?" Um, I would say customers control 80% of our roadmap. 80%. Um, The other 20% are things that we try to listen to customers, and hear their problems, hopefully through the lens of like, "Okay, you're telling me a little bit about revenue management, a little bit about pricing, but sometimes there's other problems that emerge." And there's about 20% of our roadmap where we think there's a fundamentally different way to do revenue management that, Wheelhouse is just starting to get we're just starting to execute on it now. But, you know, Brandy and other people who use our software, they push us. Um, I actually really I like it when customers push us because it means they know our platform well enough to know the edges of where we have not yet built technology to solve problems. So I would say, Will, don't know if I'm answering your question 100%, but I think the partnership with customers, like I would disagree a little bit in saying that like right now, most of what we build is not what we necessarily want, is really what the largest customers are pushing us to build for them and their teams. And I think that's very healthy.
So go ahead,
Uh,
Ella.
it's just sorry, I
Uh,
wanted to
yeah.
say that, like, I think Andrew was trying like, Andrew answered your question, but he ended up also answering the underlying question of this entire discussion. So, if you just listen to these 2 minutes of what he says and how they work and how they listen, that is the bottom line of when and at which stage in your growth do you choose to go with a specialized solution. So,
Mhm.
when we're talking all-in-one platforms, you're kind of comparing width versus depth, and an all-in-one platform that would like to offer a little bit of everything, I think is an excellent starting point for an operator that if you have 3
Yeah.
properties, I mean, you don't necessarily need a crazy algorithm. You should just start with some, be it pricing or screening or doors or noise or just whatever tools are out there. You should start with the basics and just see
Yeah.
where do you need depth? Where are you doing things ineffectively or inefficiently? And so the value of then, and I mean, cost came up during our talk, and we can address that. The value of where you're going to start weighing, does the cost, like, is the cost and benefit, do they balance each other out? And am I seeing enough from it? Is really where you need that level of expertise and depth. So an all-in-one solution should offer a little bit of everything, and that should be your way to dip your toes and see whether you need that, whether that is where you could use more expertise. And then as you go to the next level, you should be having in the other side of that conversation a team like Andrews that comes and says, well, what do you need to see, or how would you like to improve, and what are your business goals, and what are your strategy, and how can we align our roadmap and expertise in building in that direction. I think that was really answering the fundamental umbrella question of all of this.
100%. And Brandy also had your hand up, so I'm gonna let you go. Well,
Yeah, I just kind of disagree a little bit with choosing a partner if they don't like for what they're going to become. I definitely think that you should look, you want partners that are constantly growing and investing in themselves and research and building out a better product. But I would say if there's a feature that is incredibly important to you and they don't have it and it's going to be released, it's on the roadmap, it's for next quarter or, I would be very hesitant to sign on with someone if that feature is actually something that I really, really like a need to have, not a nice to have. From personal experience, that's happened before where there was, a feature that was essential to what we really needed to have, and it was promised by the time we were finished onboarding, it was going to be there, and it wasn't there for another year. So I think that it kind of, absolutely, I think choosing these partners that are forward thinking and investing in themselves and listening to their customers and are working on being a better version of themselves is important. But you have to make sure that when you're paying for a product and you're onboarding now, that they have the main thing, like they're solving the main problem that you have in that moment.
yeah, and I really love the kind of mention of being like making sure you're taking care of the basics first. Like I think that's one thing a lot of as we talk about scale, a lot of operators forget. So right, it's like, all right, what are the basics of what I'm doing? It's providing a really good product and good solution experience from the home standpoint. So then when you focus too much on the tech, I think sometimes pieces of the home get missed or the apartment or the whatever it might be type of inventory type. So like at the first beginning piece, you should be focusing on just making sure the guest can get in reliably and without issue and headache, and making sure that you're also taking care of the property from like noise or parties and stuff like that. And then as you're building out, and then you have, let's say you go from 20 reservations a month to 100 reservations a month or 1,000. Someone like AutoHost is super important because that's a lot of people to look at on a screen, whether it's Airbnb or Verbo or whatever type of platform coming from. So yeah, I think the basics part is really important as well. Go ahead, Andrew. I see you're
Yeah.
ready.
I just want to double down on like I really think philosophically, and actually, Will, could I want to see everyone's face because I want to disagree on
Yeah,
this one. I want to disagree
yeah,
on it, maybe. So I think interconnectivity is a like defining era of the future. And the reason for that, like Brandy, if you're in one property management software and you're kind of in a walled garden, right, where you can access the things they let you access. If Wheelhouse isn't connected, if another company isn't connected, you can't access them necessarily. You might have to build your own tech solution to access that technology. So sometimes when you're choosing a property management software, you're really choosing a walled garden, whether you know it or not. And I don't think that's a safe place to be. So say you decide to change your walled garden. Well, now your team, your entire team needs to learn an entirely new property management software. And that is the biggest hidden cost to a software decision is you might not be future proofed at all. You might have a super brittle organization where you're like, God, this problem hasn't been solved for a year and we can't do anything about it because it's more expensive to change. And
Mhm.
that's where this whole idea of interconnectivity as a fundamental principle of how software should be designed is really like, hey, we can pull out our revenue management software and we can switch in price labs. We can pull out, our ops software and switch, we might want to toggle between a couple of different operation softwares, or maybe how you look at data or whatever it may be. The notion of building yourself into or starting with a system where interconnectivity is the foundation and is the guiding philosophy is, I think, a way safer and less brittle way to build a scalable organization. And I sometimes look at the current PMSs as like, well, they just started adding things on as software in our space became more complex. Interconnectivity, no, some PMSs are actually really good at interconnectivity. I'm not saying they're all like, they're not, but like, I think software is getting so specialized. It's so important to work with a team who really knows the ins and outs of that particular problem they're trying to solve for you. That like, I don't think you want to put yourself in a walled garden. I think interconnectivity and understanding any property, kind of your center point, property management software, how they think about interconnectivity is a really important thing for everyone to grill their potential software partners on.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that but that's also one of the more difficult parts about choosing your software partner because I think unless you're going to conferences like VRMA and you're getting kind of the behind the scenes like gossip, if you will, or like how, learning how different vendors actually work together, you're not
Yeah.
really getting the full story because you might, and that's what I don't really know what the answer, like how to solve for that really, because you might be talking to a vendor and they're like, oh yeah, we work really well with all these people. And then you find out that like they're not great at, like connecting with them is very difficult. So some vendors choose not to. And, things like that. And I don't know yet if there's a great way to really get that information because obviously no platform's going to be say like, oh no, we don't. We make it very difficult for new vendors to join our space. So I think that's been a challenge for us over the last 6 years is finding out like who actually is a good partner to work with. And that's just something you kind of gain over time.
Yeah.
A
Luca.
couple ways to
Yeah,
evaluate
so,
that,
yeah.
right?
Sorry.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Luca, go for it.
Yeah, no, sorry. I just want to say because like it's 100. I tell you exactly how I feel, and obviously I'm biased because I decided to create Journey specifically because I had that pain point, right? Like I was so frustrated with the current ecosystem, and just like it was so hard to make things work well with one another. And my strong belief is that the future of the industry is going to be built by uh, vertical experts and you're going to have different interconnectivity platforms. So I think Journey is the first, but it's definitely not going to be the last. And that's what the future is going to be. Is going to be to choose the best interconnectivity platform in the future. Maybe not today, right? Maybe we're not 100% there yet. I think we are, but for some people maybe we aren't, right? But I think in the future is going to be um, really choosing who is the one that pre-built the best tech stack already pre-built because it's not, I don't think it's sustainable for an operator to literally have basically now having to have, now you see the best operators all have CTOs, developers. Like, I'm like, are we in hospitality or are we in technology? That's not sustainable. Like it's the same concept of going to buy a car and then they're going to just show you a bunch of vendors and they're going to be like, choose the best ones, put them together, hire an engineer, put it together, and then you can drive your car. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like we are asking everybody to become technical experts of building tools. I don't think that's sustainable. I think that is going to change. And I think what the industry is going to be built by best in class of specific verticals and then tools that they allow you to put them seamlessly together and potentially having those stacks like being pre-built already and meant to be working with one another, right? Like you go in a car, each component in that car is meant to be working with one another. You build a tech stack on top of a PMS, it's not meant to be working together. I promise you that. You say when you switched 4 PMSs, I switched 5 as an
Oh,
operator.
wow. Okay. You're the first person that's
I,
beat me.
yes, like it's why? Because I was scrambling on trying to figure out this like ultimate solution for my business because I'm like, I'm not going to scale into thousands of units unless I know that my backbone's not going to collapse. And I never had that comfort level to the point that I had to go so deep on building that tech stack that I said, okay, now I'm more of a technology company than an operator. Let's just become a tech company. Right. So, but that's a problem. That's an industry issue
And the average
that we're
operator
having. It's
should
not
not do
sustainable.
that. Right.
Say that again, Ella.
I said the average operator should not do that. So I mean, like it's true the journey really reached that point and many tools out there started as operators and found that need. But yes, the journey that you guys went through is something that, now that there's things in the space, I think operators should take advantage of. And I don't think Luke is challenging anybody to start becoming a tech expert, but on the contrary, like it's kind of on us vendors, if anything, to simplify it so that they don't have to.
Well, I know Andrew maybe has something to add, but I also want to pose a question then because whether again it could be an early day brand new host to become a PM, or it could be a PM that's been in the industry for a while and has grown to an amazing scale. When is too much tech? And then also, how do you know what tech to invest into? And is it even worth it? Because there's some solutions that like, do we need all these specialized solutions? I don't think we need a review platform, but there's review platforms out there. I don't think we need that. Why? Reviews are becoming outdated because this is my opinion, so that you guys can more happily disagree with me. But like, I feel like reviews are becoming so obsolete now because again, a lot of them are fake. So many people can whip up a listing, have their friends do a review, or book a $1 stay with them and leave a 5-star review, and the place could be trash. So, like, is that something I would invest in? No, I wouldn't as an operator. But I don't know. I guess my question is like, is there too many specialized solutions that maybe aren't needed for the industry?
I who Brandy, you want to fire away first?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So every software you choose should be a profit or saving center. Otherwise, don't use it. Right? If it's a cost center for you, there's no reason to use software. Software is fundamentally designed to make us more scalable as a team or as an individual. Right? It has like if you felt like you're paying more for Wheelhouse than you got, turn us off immediately. Immediately. Why would you do that? Right? So like every single software out there, I think creates value. And I guess I just want to name and group here's my list of categories of software in this space. Okay. Property management software, revenue management software, distribution and channel management, operation software, data like key data, transparent, etc. Communication software, IoT software, ancillary revenue software, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. How do you manage all the supplies and furniture in your space? Accounting software, insurance, investment and underwriting new deals, ranking, search rank, direct, people who are booking direct. That's minimum, probably at least 13 categories of software that I would argue every team at scale will eventually invest in.
Me and Brandy think that the channel management should become part of the PMS. The PMS and the channel manager should never have to be separate, in my opinion, either.
Okay.
But
And
that
I
should,
would argue revenue management might want to tie in there too. And then
yeah.
if you want to get ancillary and guest comms in there, yes. But do you want one team building all those things? Because if you do and you have a problem, put the problem in line behind the 13 other things that they need to service. That's the interesting part of this. Software is everywhere.
Yeah, I think the one thing want to see combined more than anything is the distribution channeled management into your PMS, and I think you're seeing that more and more. But that to me is like one of the big like that's an easy thing to combine. But I think all of these like questions are different depending on how big you are. Because if you are smaller, I think you should try to minimize the amount of money that you're spending on all of your services, and maybe you can accomplish some of those different types of software. And it might not be exactly what you want, but maybe your PMS does a combination of all of those things. But I would say, like, as you get bigger, you want, like, I think about the kind of nitty gritty, very specific things that we want to accomplish. And right now, unfortunately, we have to go and get like a specialized, software to handle all of that. But I agree with you, Andrew. If the value, you need to be getting real value from whatever that software is. And I think just adding things on, it does seem to be getting um, a little superfluous in some areas, like having things that are very, very specific. But also if you're a larger player and you want to have a review platform that is like incredibly specific and you can afford it, then that's fine. And I guess that's why they exist. But I think that's another type of software that could roll up into your PMS. I think my personal opinion is that I would love to see these like have most things be in the PMS and have that be the brain of your business.
Yeah.
Ella.
So
I
yeah, we go.
I was going to say that I think it does raise an interesting question that some of you touched on when it comes to cost. So Andrew kind of said that, I mean, at the end of the day, you need to be making you money either in the format of actual revenue or saving you money, and other ways. So and I think this also came up with some of my conclusions from VRMA, is that operators on the one hand and vendors on the other hand need to get better at educating on how to assess ROI. So ROI being the return on your investment. So sometimes it's very easy. So you put in $10, you make 20. That's an easy, supposed no brainer, but it's not always that simple to look at it this way. And so when operators consider, or Brandy, a company, the size of Sexton, when you guys are thinking, okay, what kind of partial tools are available through my PNS and at what level do I want to then go into a specialized, you guys are doing a cost benefit analysis. So you need to be looking at what will I be gaining and saving, be it from human hours, actual effectiveness, reaching next level. Will it help me grow? Will it help me save? Will it automate processes? Does that save me money? Can I do things better? So when you're assessing a tool and say, okay, I can either have it for free through my PMS and it's going to be at 50% quality, or I can pay X for it and it's going to be at 100% quality. That is exactly maybe the internal discussion you should be having as a company, and vendors should be assisting in it. So I think that when you're assessing a tool, just to add on to what Andrew said, yes, you should be making money from it. But the other two parameters I would add there are really convenience, which is where the automation comes in, and quality. Can a tool do something better than you manually or your current solution for free? And if the answer to those two are yes, and you're able to put an estimated number figure on it, you can justify paying for a tool, knowing that it helps your business grow and you'll make more out of it than you're spending on it.
Really good. I know maybe Andrew and Luca had one or two more points to make, and then as maybe anyone who's listening or watching heard, all of our calendar notifications go off at once, so we got to wrap that up, and then we can go from there.
Luke, I'll start because I think you're the one who's premised a really fundamentally different approach to some of this stuff. So the reason, so first of all, I agree that when you're a small operator, start with one or a few simple softwares. But you never want to be in a position where you want to enable a teammate or your company to do something and you can't access it, which is why I really do believe that interconnectivity is a fundamental principle of how software should be designed. And I think of my role at Wheelhouse, and you'll probably think of your role as leaders, as like our job is to empower teammates to do their best work. And often today that requires software. So therefore, like to set your team up, to future-proof your team, to think about like building a non-brittle organization where you're really tied to one platform delivering too much for you, where you can have specialists access the best technologies out there that are moving faster than any one org can go. Like it's just, again, to me, there's an inevitability around interconnectivity being like the most important part for PMS. And I totally agree, Brandy, your PMS should be the heart, or you should have a central nervous system and be able to switch out any individual component of it. And I think that's how software from, we mentioned Segment, Zapier, which stitches together tons of softwares. All these things are designed to take all the data out there and make it into one holistic system. And I think that's really powerful. And I think Luca and team at Journey are doing something pretty unique that we all need to be paying attention to.
Yeah. Now, Luca.
Yeah, no,
Awesome.
definitely. I think we all brought up like super great points. And I think there's like two lessons here from both sides. One is from hosts, also from other softwares, the software is like really listen to your customers better. I mean, and I'm not talking for the people on this panel because the reason why we chose them as partners is because we know that they listen, right? And we know that they work for the future. And to address even a little bit what Brandy said, like, yeah, absolutely, you have to have the basic, or there's no even reason of working with that partner. But if you don't know that that partner will listen to you in the future and develop specific things to what you're going to need in the future, it's not going to be a valuable partner in the future. You just made a perfect example. They promised you something, and after 1 year, they haven't delivered. That's not acceptable, right? Especially when you have a large partner like you. So I think there's a lesson to be learned from both sides here, and even the other softwares that are out there that oftentimes, unfortunately, in our industry, they develop software like it's a solid product. The needs are going to change, constantly change, and if you don't listen to your customers, you are going to be left behind. And so I think, and then the lesson from being a host is to really choose wisely your partners and like interview them, like talk to people that have worked with them, right? That's really important because at the end of the day, they're going to be partners of yours because they're going to enable you to become successful.
Well, interview your tech partners, interview your owners because they're also your partners. So interview everybody. Just start throwing out interviews. Become a podcast host. Interview other people. Kidding. But no, seriously, this has been a really good conversation. So I'm hoping, and I actually know people listening or watching will have definitely gotten value from this because it is a very high level view of not just operations, but overall the industry on where it's going, whether it's interconnectivity, whether it's specialized solutions, whether it's softwares that we care for or don't care for that we think maybe exist or shouldn't exist. There's a lot to digest and to really understand like how does this get better? And it really does come down to the question or answer of, saying, okay, it just depends. Depends if you're starting out. It depends on what size you're at. It depends on the cost. It depends on the value. It depends on your problems you're trying to solve. So, um, thank you guys for doing this. And thank you for also having us as a panel during VRMA. It was a lot of fun. Love hanging out with you guys. Bunch of great minds in the industry. So just want to say thank you. And we'll hopefully see you guys again soon. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.